Yo, what's up guys? It's Bill here for Classic Rock and Metal Review. Let's get into another edition of the monthly haul. We changed the format last month, as you know. Rather than me just show you whatever titles I picked up the last 30 days, can just focus on the ones that I really got a chance to get into. Last month it was 8. I got into 6 different titles this month, really good. That means a minimum of 2 listens. Full reviews, give you a little brief histories of the bands, where they were at the time upon making those albums. Give you a 0 to 10 review of them all. This month we're talking Hall & Oates, the Steve Miller Band, a heavy rock trio out of Detroit called Vendetta, recommended by one of you guys. Steve Winwood solo, also some Riot, great hard rock band out of New York. Really could have been a Love You Long Time episode. I did used to have this one back in the day. Fire Down Under. Can't wait to revisit that one. And last but not least, let's all toast something Mexican. Grab a Modelo. I'm going with a margarita. And that is to salute Santana. We'll leave that review last. Double CD, double album originally. Moonflower. New to me. Great one. One of my favorite new pickups of this year, honestly. And I can only really think of one other that's got me so stoked. So, excited about that. All these reviews coming up right now. Looking like a good one. Pause it up. Go get your Corona on or whatever you got laying around. Mexicali. I meant to, in that little announcement a few days ago, give you the alcohol lineup for the month. Kind of forgot. Maybe next month we'll do another announcement at the beginning. We'll schedule it up. Not Hall & Oates, but originally known as Daryl Hall and John Oates. And I'm not even 100% sure that that's what they wanted to be called. Inside the cover to this debut of theirs, they credit themselves being called Whole Oates, you know, for the arrangements or something or other. So Daryl Hall and John Oates is what's on the side, so we'll just go with that. This is a September 1972 release on Atlantic Records. I've had it on vinyl for a long time, probably about 30 years now. Maybe not quite, but somewhere around there. And it was one of these like pickups at independent record store used. I think I paid $5 for it. Transferred it to cassette so I could drive around with it and all. So I really kind of dug this. And finally, you know, just getting it on CD. Now guys, this just goes to show you, use your save search in eBay. I was only finding $30 copies. I saved the search. I got an email a few days later, someone selling it for $10. Snapped it up. As usual, needed a new cover. Anyway, rumor is that these guys are from Philadelphia. Oh, kind of, sort of, almost. Daryl Hall is from nearby Pottstown, PA. John Oates from New York City. They met at Philadelphia's Temple University, North Philly. Formed the duo in 1970. Now, here on this album, we're very far from the 80s pop hit machine that they were going to become. And maybe a little bit too far for some people, even for me in a few cases. On some songs, I mean, it's just a very early 70s singer-songwriter sort of affair, you know. Very folky. And we're talking vocal and guitar only, or piano and guitar only. There's probably 4 songs like that. Maybe some light accompaniment from some orchestration here and there, or some keyboards in the background. But that's about 4 of the songs that are on here. So I think the key here, if you want to try and enjoy this album, you already kind of like them for their later stuff. Just know that going in. You know, we got a band in the beginning here finding their way. Musically, not nearly as much going on some of these songs as we're used to. All right, which, you know, basically exposes the songwriting completely. There's a few misses on here, but overall, you know, it's a pretty damn good album. Handful of great songs, handful of really good ones, handful of just okays, you know. By the next album, awesome, all right? My 4 examples of greatness on here are the opener, I'm Sorry, minor hit in the Philly area especially, Fall in Philadelphia, the 4th song. Good Night and Good Morning gets some airplay now and then, or used to, and still does on the 1 or 2 cool channels left in the area. And Lily, Are You Happy? The closer is literally one of my favorite songs of all time by anyone. I love that tune. Great one. Some honorable mentions: All Our Love, Georgie, Water Wheels, kind of cool. And I think They Needed Each Other's pretty good too. So you got 3 or 4 others on there that are just on the very mellow side. Even those aren't really all that bad. So, I mean, what I think's going on here, honestly, why those songs with the full band are so much better. There's, the vocals have something to compete against, and those 4 mellower songs, there's really not even any harmonizing going on. Something about the full band being involved in the songs just brings everything up, vocals included. You don't even really hear Hall stretch out into any kind of soulful singing. He's a really great singer, but he's not doing anything that knocks your socks off unless the full band's behind him. Those 4 songs I mentioned. The original Atlantic CD, by the way, is out of print, so that's why this is a little pricey trying to find it. But this thing sounds excellent, by the way. I know there was some sort of remaster later on that had the 3rd album on there too. I would go for this one. This thing really sounds almost as good as the vinyl album. I would have to give Whole Oates by Daryl Hall and John Oates a 7.7. There's some really strong stuff, most of the album. 3 or 4 mellower songs, a couple of which are good, a couple of which a little on the boring side for me. 7.7. Vendetta, guys, told you in the beginning, this is a heavy rock power trio, I guess you'd call them. 1982 self-titled debut. They're from Detroit. Hard to find a lot of info on these guys. I'll tell you what little I know. Holding a 2009 Retrospect Records edition of the original album. But they were originally on Epic Records, produced by Max Norman, Ozzy fame, right? They actually shot a video for the 5th song on here, Babylon Rocks, so you might be able to you can find that on YouTube if you want. 3-piece, like I said, hard rock / metal band. I would call them more like power rock. They're, one of these rare bands that's sort of like heavier than Kiss and UFO, not as heavy as the Scorpions or Judas Priest. So heavy rock is where I would go with the description of these guys. And that's not a knock on them at all. I think we need more bands. The more bands we can find like that, the better. Love that kind of music. Nicky Buzz fronts the band, guitars and vocals. Terry Fox on drums, Clive Black, the bass player. Every song on here, guys, is heavy. I mean, it's hard rock all the way through. A few songs on here in places to me sound like sort of the heaviest Journey ever got. A couple of songs kind of sound that way for, not the whole song, but for parts of the songs. And that's no knock, that's kind of a cool thing. Major takeaways from listening to this one: these guys really have their own sound, and that's not something easy to do. Musically, every song has a real sort of booming kind of sound to it. It's really not easy to describe. It's not like it's super bassy or anything. It's almost like the guitar has a bassy tone to it. Now when it's solo, when the guitar's soloing, it's not that way. But the rhythm of the guitar seems to have a bassy kind of punch to it. Just a thundering kind of sound. I really think they kind of sound like a band that, guys, I only have 1 CD from them that I haven't even listened to yet, but from knowing those 2 hits off the radio, sounds on certain riffs on here really remind me of Nazareth. I'm sure these guys had to have been fans, because I don't think I've ever found myself saying that about a band in the past. Highlights for me on this one: the opener, Nighttime. The second song, Jedi Knight, is also great. Can You See Me? Can You See Through Me is awesome. That's the one that kind of sounds like a heavy Journey in some spots. Power of the Union, I think, is my favorite song. 4th one in. Hellcat's also cool. Bite Your Lips, also really good. The whole album's really good. I mean, there's not much on here that's just okay. A couple songs that are good, not great. Overall, guys, I got to give these guys have a pretty unique sound. And it's a heavy rock sound, like I said, not quite metal. Really enjoy that sort of little subgenre. Give this thing an 8.3. Solid recommendation. All right, guys, Steve Miller Band, Living in the 20th Century. We've got a Sailor Records product. They're a subsidiary of Capitol Records. 14th album for the Steve Miller Band, 1986 release. Last month, as I was mentioning, I delved into Abracadabra for the first time. Really enjoyed that album. Kind of surprised how much I liked it. Came across this when I was buying some others in like a batch of CDs on eBay. So threw it in the cart. Only a few dollars, right? So really loved the song I Want to Make the World Turn Around. I remember seeing the video back in the day when it came out, and I really liked the song. I couldn't tell you much about the video. If I had to guess, I think it had some animation, like this cover sort of going on, but I'm just totally guessing at that. But I loved the tune. Based on that, I figured once I saw that this was actually 86, that it would actually be more synth than Abracadabra. I did not expect this album to have half blues covers on there. I mean, to me, with I Want to Make the World Turn Around sounding so modern, wasn't expecting 5 or 6 blues songs, but that is what we get, side 2 of the album, I'm sure. And to boot, a couple of the songs on side 1 are just instrumentals. So there's really only 3 sort of modern pop rock songs on side 1, a couple instrumentals, and then a whole side of blues. Highlights for me, if I had to pick a few, because I'm not in love with this record. Nobody But You, Baby. It's okay. Really just pop sounding, modern pop. At least it's guitar led, not like a keyboard thing. It's just okay. I Want to Make the World Turn Around. I love that song, and I always have. Living in the 20th Century. Now that's a really good one, and it is kind of sort of a modern take on blues. This one at least is original. Some cool effects, you know, in general, and also there's like a slide guitar solo that has some cool effects going on. But overall, the song's like a real sort of head bobber. Pretty good stuff. I can't argue about this one. This kind of blues works. It's original. It's a little modern sounding. You know, it's sort of tread some new ground is what I'm getting at. The third and fifth song on side 1, Slinky and Maelstrom, are the instrumentals, and they're actually both good. Maelstrom really doesn't fit in here very well. It sounds like nothing else really on this record, but overall feels a little out of place, but it is a good song. Now side 2, a half dozen standard formula blues numbers, or standards if you want to call them that. Everyone except the last song on the album, so 5 covers, 1 original, which sounds as bluesy as those other songs. If you're a blues fan or a diehard Steve Miller fan, I guess you're going to love it. Of course, Steve's a blues guy, we know that. But I kind of like blues thrown into my pop rock or an occasional blues number. You know, hearing 5 in a row, really 6 in a row, not quite for me. So, you know, overall, I have to give this just a 6.5. It's not something I'm going to find myself putting on, only because it's just so much blues. I give Steve some credit for going against the grain. I mean, 1986 blues were probably at an all-time low in popularity. The whole synth pop thing taking over the world. So he goes, you know, does almost a half album of modern stuff, all these throwback songs. But 6.5 is as good as I can give it. Only because I'm not a blues fan. If you are, or you really just like everything Steve does, you probably think this is a solid 8 or higher. All right, guys, About Time, Steve Winwood's solo album from 2003. I mentioned before a few weeks ago that I picked it up. And, you know, back when this came out, I heard a few songs on the radio. I also got to see a few songs on both, I think, Soundstage and Austin City Limits he performed on. So actually, just the other day, I ordered this off. This is a bootleg copy of Austin City Limits from that year. And looking forward to checking this one out. I think I have this like burned on a DVD-R, so let's see what the quality's like on this. I'm sure it's great. Although I taped the DVD-R right off the TV. So anyway, I'm looking forward to checking that out. This one is a winner. All right, we're on the Windcraft Music label. I guess that's something Steve has his hand in. This was his first solo album since 1997. A real throwback sound. That's why I was super excited about this when it came out, hearing the songs on the radio and TV. Steve's back on Hammond B3, minimal sort of band, guitarist behind him, drummer behind him, some other elements in there here and there. But mostly front and center, Steve on the Hammond B3. He brings in Brazilian jazz guitarist Jose Perez de Almeida Neto. So you know we got to toast that name, all right? Sensational drummer, percussionist, Wilfredo Reyes Jr. He's a Cuban-American. You know him from Santana. Awesome. And also, interestingly, Carl Denson from Carl Denson's Tiny Universe, who I know nothing about. Sax and flute on 4 tracks. So there's your lineup. And it, like I said, it's kind of a throwback sound, harkens back to, Traffic days, early 70s Traffic days. I have to say, first listen to this, guys. I loved the 4 songs that I knew from watching them on TV, hearing them a little on radio. The others, a couple of others I liked too. But out of 11 songs, I was really kind of leaving a little to be desired, only because it's just 64 minutes of a lot of the same overall sound. So, waited a few days, gave it the good old second listen, Sunday morning coffee kind of thing, blasting in the house. Not only loved those 2 that I liked, in addition to the 4 that I already knew, started liking a couple of others. I'll say overall, there's a couple songs on here that are good, decent, good, not great. But there are actually, I think, 6 great songs, 3 really good songs, just a couple that don't do a whole lot for me, but they're okay, listenable tunes. It's very reminiscent, the overall sound on here, like the John Barleycorn Must Die album. Think about Freedom Rider, Empty Pages. This is groove music, Things get into a groove and they stay there, Sade comes to mind. If you ever listen to any Sade full-length albums, they're not going to knock your socks off first listen, but they're going to creep in and grow on you. Good jams, good stuff. You wouldn't throw this thing on if you're getting ready to throw some beers back at a barbecue, You do want to throw it on if you're just hanging out in your house, maybe sipping a margarita or something. Because by the end of that drink, this album's still on. I'm sure it better be, or you're not drinking enough. You're probably going to want to dance to a couple of these songs. The percussion on here can be really tasty at times. The guitar playing, a little sporadic. I kind of wish there was a little more. It's mostly acoustic, but there's some electric. That's really good. Think, like I said, early 70s Traffic. Nice comeback here by Steve. First listen had me a little gun shy on the overall album. Second listen put that to rest. Different Light, Sagano for the Gypsies, Killer. Why Can't We Live Together is really good. The ones that really knocked my socks off that I wasn't familiar with, Domingo Morning and Now That You're Alive. They're fantastic. A killer groove on Now That You're Alive. Several other really good ones on here. Guys, an 8.5, okay? If you took the 2 off of here that I'm not in love with, we'd be talking a strong 9. This would have been an excellent 9-song album. But we get 11 songs and it's still a nice 8.5. Guys, Riot's Fire Down Under, awesome 1981 album, originally on Elektra Records. What I'm holding here is our 2018 Rock Candy edition. Some bonus tracks on there. It looks like a total of 6, which is nice. Now, guys, this is only my second Rock Candy CD. First one was Armored Saint. I thought it could have used a little bass. This one, on the other hand, sounds fantastic. Perfect, awesome sound. Not a fan of the hype sticker being right on the jewel case, though. Got to admit that. You can't get it off. Jewel case cracks, it's gone kind of thing. Not a fan of that. Guys, this album, the dude I went to Metallica with, Rich, taped it for me. So it wasn't quite Love You Long Time material because I listened to it 3 or 4 times. I remembered a couple of the songs that I loved. But overall, I didn't really remember enough of this album to qualify for that. Although I probably could have fudged it. Anyway, of course, this album was held up by Elektra back in the day. and fans had to petition the record label to release it. So, pretty infamous story at this point. There's a few different Riot documentaries on YouTube you can check out if you want to check out that full story. They basically didn't want to release it because they thought they signed a rock band, a few years earlier, who were now getting heavier. They thought it was too heavy. So, like I said, people were actually vandalizing Capitol Records in LA. There were pickets outside of the UK offices. There was a DJ over there who was pretty instrumental in getting the petition together. So, over in the UK. So, pretty cool. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. So, pretty awesome. Let's just get right into the songs on here. One of the all-time greats, Swords and Tequila, to start things off. That's got to be one of everyone's favorites, right? Classic heavy rock. It's fantastic. Fire Down Under, the title track, another great one, another one of my favorites. Awesome note pattern work here by Mark Rial, like a lot of the others have. Feel the Same, a little change of pace number. Slow to heavy kind of number. It's decent. Not loving that one, though, as much as others. Outlaw, now this was the other one of my favorites back in the day. Rhythm to this really sounds to me rooted in like mid-70s punk. Maybe Sex Pistols would have did this one. Listen to it again, you'll see what I mean. It's got a real punk rock rhythm going on to it. Killer effects on the guitars. Another incredible fade-out solo by Mark Rial here. Fantastic. Next up, Don't Bring Me Down. I was just saying this on the Armored Saint Love You Long Time about the song Mutiny on the World. There's not enough songs with just bass and drums letting the guitar do their things. And this is kind of one. Although there is a guitar in there, but it's kind of muted. And Mark Rial does some awesome solos right after the first chorus over the top of just bass drums. And like I said, a muted rhythm guitar. Sounds really cool. I love when you hear that stuff. Don't Hold Back. More guitar note runs, rather than a chord rhythm. Note pattern rhythm, and underneath the lead vocals really sound good too. Altar of the King, another solid hard rocker, very Lizzie-like breakdown towards the end of it. Sounds a lot like Lizzie for a few seconds there. No Lies, this would probably be my second least favorite song on the album. It's okay, but this would have been probably a B-side of a single. Run for Your Life, we end on a great note here. Very early Maiden sounding musically. Singer Guy Speranza sounds, for some reason in this one song, on the chorus, he reminds me of Billy Squier. So if you ever wanted to hear what Billy Squier would sound like singing an Iron Maiden song, this is it. More killer solos here. Great one. Song ends with this little tune called Flashbacks. Just a little sort of nod to the fans and to the DJ from the UK who helped them out. This is definitely a B-side kind of thing. It's only a few minutes long. A lot of just stage announcements kind of thing. Just sort of little tribute song. Not a real genuine song. But overall, guys, as most of you already know, Fire Down Under is just chock full of awesome hard rock, heavy metal if you want to call it that. They're somewhere in there, right? But never really firmly trenched in one sort of style. Just a great style, right? Great songwriting, fantastic guitar work. This Rock Candy edition sounds excellent. I recommend you get this one for sure. I don't know how a album could sound any better, honestly. The bonus tracks are decent, but not mandatory. Kind of remind me of like that early to mid 80s UFO. Very much more commercial friendly on them, and for the most part, than what's on the rest of the album. So I know some of these songs were from the same sessions. A few others, maybe not. They don't sound like they belong on this record. So they definitely picked a great 8 or 9 songs to be on Fire Down Under. And have to give this one an 8.8. Hard to argue with, basically near perfection. Last but not least, let's toast Carlos Santana and the band. They put together a great album here. Originally a double album, 1977. This is a 2 CD. And guys, gotta say, I just love me an old school Fat Boy box. I love these things, man. I'll take one of these Fat Boys over like a remastered version any day, really. Just something about them. Just pure nostalgia, I know. What we have here, guys, Columbia Records, like I said, 77. Some new studio songs paired up with live songs from their 76 tour, recorded in 3 different cities in Europe. Now, what's cool about it is the studio songs, the new ones, are shuffled right in there next to live songs. Probably 2/3 live, 1/3 studio, if I had to, off the top of my head, break it down. Like a lot of bands, the mid-70s found Santana embracing the whole jazz rock fusion thing. But in the case of Santana, strong Latin flair, especially when it comes to the percussion, which completely lends itself to that style of music, jazz fusion. And the two just combine perfectly here. This percussion's off the charts. The songwriting's great. Yeah, it's kind of jazz rock fusion. The guitar playing's real bluesy. The guitar playing's not super jazzy. A couple of songs have some jazzy sounds. It's mostly blues guitar paired with Latin percussion, paired with jazz fusion sounds, songs. Such a trend that like Chicago even added a percussionist in 73, 74. But I don't think they come even close to the sounds you're getting on this thing. I'm trying to pick out some standout tracks. The whole album is great. It's just it's friggin' brilliant. Every song is interesting, exciting. There's so much energy going on with these performances. Prior to this, guys, I only had the first 3 Santana albums. So I would say this thing is as good or better than those. If that's not saying a lot, I don't know what is. I usually complain if there aren't many standout tracks, but in this case, everything's just so great. It's really hard to pick them. From Force 2, I'll say Let the Children Play. Black Magic Woman and Gypsy Queen, the live versions here are awesome, as you'd expect. And that's what's kind of cool. You get a handful of older songs to kind of break it all up. But I'm telling you, man, everything on here is just killer. Gigando's awesome. I really like I'll Be Waiting. El Morocco, another really good one. Like I said, this album, I would say, is one of my favorite pickups of the year, right alongside Blue Murder's debut. Super awesome. It's really hard to find any fault out of this. They do She's Not There in the studio. That was the only single from the album. That sounds good. Just fantastic, man. There's almost no fault with this album. I'm going to give it a 9.7, and really just because I don't believe in a full 10. It's going to be really rare to have a 10. This is a solid 9.7. It is great. If you come across Santana, go for this bad boy. You won't be disappointed. Guys, that's going to actually wrap it up for this edition of Monthly Haul. Maybe I'll do a show pretty soon where I just show you some of the other pickups I got. At this point, there's probably another 40 I'm not mentioning just from the last couple months. But I'd rather do this. Just focus on a handful of things. And guys, that'll do it for now. If you feel like liking and subscribing, go right ahead. I think you know what we do, guys. We talk and we drink. I'll catch you next up on the Japan Bootleg Reviews segment. Always a fun time had by all.